if you're a new manager, CEO, business leader in that category, and you have a list of important and urgent things that is so long that there's not enough time in a lifetime to do all of them. I'm exaggerating, of course, but if you're one of those who has all of these things on your list and you need to cut that in maybe half or to a third, and figure out what the most important things are, then this will be perfect for you. Literally, when I did this yesterday, I had a client on and said like, oh, I just moved 60% of the things that were in my important and urgent to something I can plan and do later. Like 60% of the things that they thought were important and urgent were not. So the tool I'm going to go through today is powerful. It's ugly, but it's powerful. It's kind of like myself. That's how I see myself. I don't go for the beautiful fancy stuff. I make it super simple so you can use it and actually get the power out of it. Okay, whatever. So here's the thing. How many of you guys are using the Eisenhower Matrix on a daily basis? Just let me send like a one in the comments or whatever. Just let me know like this is something you're using. And if you don't know what the Eisenhower Matrix is, just put that in the comment as well, so I can kind of get a grasp on where we're at. Okay. So we got a couple of people using it. Yeah, okay, perfect. So the thing that usually happens is that you go through your urgent and important, and then you're like, as I teach you guys, is to go through your list, mark it with a U as in urgent, mark it with an I as in important, and then all of that becomes, the things you should do right now. But the problem that happens is that list becomes so long because we don't really know what is the most important. Now we only know what the important things are, but how do we figure out amongst all of these things which are the most important things? It's easy to figure out what's important, but what is the most important right now? That's where it becomes a little bit more tricky. So the tool we're going to talk about today, it actually is going to make you compare the different things and see which one are the most important things. Like, what are the 5% that will give you 80% of the output? So you can focus your main effort on those things and do the other things that are still important, but not as important. Does that make sense? Is this exciting? Because I think this is a ridiculously good tool. And I hope you like it. Yeah. So here's the thing, right? Eisenhower Matrix, amazing tool, but it assumes that you already know what is important. It assumes that you have a clear vision that you're working towards. So I want to give you before we get into this, I want to give you a definition of how I see what is important and what is not. And maybe you will agree with it, and maybe it will make sense to you. So, as far as I see, something that is important is something that is leading me towards wherever I want to go in the most effective way possible. Something that is not important is something that is not leading me towards goal. It's leading me away from my goal. So the assumption here is that you got to have a goal, a vision, a direction. Otherwise, nothing can be more or less important. Does that make sense? This is vital that we get this thing. So if you don't have a goal, you don't have a direction, then nothing can be more or less important. That's super important. There you go. And everything that moves you efficiently towards your goal, it's important, and everything that doesn't do that is less important. Make sense? Check it in on the comments. Okay, so now the question is, how the heck do we figure out what leads us towards our goals in the most efficient way? Because the things that do that the most efficient way are our top priorities. The important things of the important things, so to say. Okay, let's get into it. Now I'm going to take you into this tool that I've used this in my so maybe I should start it out this way. My name is Gabriel von Höring. I teach military delegation technique to business leaders, so they can build autonomous teams and have high performance by also reducing stress. It's a pretty cool thing, right? All these tools, all these experiences, they come from a military background. They're all based on the international deployments I've done and all the tactical stuff that I've done. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I figured out a couple of years ago that, you know what, I can take all these tactical stuff, implement them in the office, and that could be pretty effective. So that's what I tried to do. So I've taken all the tactic stuff, thrown it into the office, and it works really great. So this tool that you'll see now is actually one of those. I used to have this exact, not exact, but a similar model when I went to approach bombs in West Africa or the Middle East to figure out what is the most important thing here for me to do. Okay, I'm going to share a little screen with you guys. So hopefully now you can see a screen of my little spreadsheet. Can you give me a thumbs up so I can see that you see this thing? Awesome. Looks like you got it. Okay, so as I said before, all of my tools are really ugly, really basic, but they're as ugly and basic as they are effective. So the people I have inside Delegation Mastery right now, we're training on these exact tools, but we're expanding on it and we're going into the details. But I want to give you a short little tour here so you can take this tool and implement it in your everyday. And if you want the link to this, just comment and I'll put the link in there. So here's what I do. I got a bunch of questions here. They're all designed with specific purpose in mind. And then I add my task up here. And then I add more tasks to the right so I can start comparing them. So basically, I have one task here that's on my list of things that it's on my important list, and it's like almost on my urgent list. I'm not really sure what to do with it. So I'm going to run you through this. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to move my entire scientificleadership.com page to Bluehost for different reasons. The first thing I want to do is I want to check the potential wins. And there's a reason why I'm looking into potential wins and opportunities more than losses. And we'll get back to that later. But it's really important, this potential wins thing. So, if I prioritize this task, what is the best outcome that could happen? Well, there's a bunch of things that can happen, but the best ones would be a much less downtime. I would say a bunch of time. I don't have to fix all the problems that comes with having a separate one. I think those are the two major ones. Okay, how likely is this best outcome? Well, to be honest, I think it's a 9 out of 10. I rate all of this from 1 to 10. For me, I think it's a 9 or a 10 because I believe that this is the solution to my problem. How valuable is this? Well, if I can save a bunch of time, I should also add, I am making more sales. Yeah, that's true. So how valuable is the outcome? Well, it's a big one. Like it's a 9. Making more money, saving time, don't have to spend time on problem solving. Who doesn't want more of that? Okay, here we go. Next step, potential losses. If I prioritize this task, what is the worst outcome that could happen? Like what can I lose here if I do this? This is probably the easiest way for most of us because we're really prone to seeing, the fear of missing out, the mistakes, the problems that could happen, right? So, what's the worst thing that happened? Well, the entire website shuts down for a few days. It shuts down. That could happen. There'll be some problems with transferring it, so it'll be a pain in the butt, and then I'll have to spend more time figuring that out. Wasting time on whatever. Whatever could happen, right? Okay, how likely is that? I think it's fairly low probability that will happen. They do it all the time, and they're pretty good at it. Maybe a 4. And the impact, let's say it would be down for a couple of days. Maybe I'll lose some sales. Probably not that important. I'll give it a 5. Or, yeah, not a big deal, I think. Here's the cool thing. Some of you guys are like, potential wins, opportunities, kind of the same thing. Well, it's the same thing, but it's also a different perspective on it. So, we as humans we're wired for avoiding losses and avoiding fear. A great book I can recommend is Thinking Fast and Slow by Donald Kahneman. and they talk about loss aversion, like how we are wired to avoid losses more than we're interested in winning. So I'm trying to shift here a little bit. I'm trying to like, okay, how can I build my tools so I'm always looking for opportunities and wins, and not always just centered on not losing. So if you want to win something, you got to focus on the win, right? You don't win by avoiding losses. You win by chasing opportunities and looking for, a breakthrough. That's my vision on things. That's my philosophy. So in this area now, I want to talk about opportunity. Okay, if I prioritize, we're still in the if. What opportunities am I missing out on? We're over here now, right? Here's like, okay, if I'm not doing this, if I'm doing this, what am I not doing? What am I missing out on? What could I be doing? And to be honest, um, for me, it's like I couldn't be doing this live today. I wouldn't be able to prepare the training that I've got with the delegation mastery students later today. And those are, yeah, I think that would be the biggest now. How valuable are those opportunities? Well, those are huge. This is my main game, right? The interaction I have with you today now and with my students later tonight, those are, the 5% that gives me the most value in life and the most value in my business. So these are really big ones for me. So this, I'll put it on a 9. There's not a lot of other things that are so valuable. Is this making sense? Do you guys have any questions? Feel free to jump in the comment section, and hopefully I see the comments, because a bunch of the times I don't. LinkedIn. Okay, we got a few more minutes to figure this stuff out, and we're on minute 13, so we're gonna nail it. We're good. Once I've done that, I have collected all my data. Like, these are numbers, right? This data. Like, okay, the likely outcome. It's a 9. I have my probability. I have my impact score. I have all these things. But here's the big deal, right? We, as a human race, we know that we don't understand everything. We know there are things about our consciousness that we don't understand. Like, Einstein's theory of relativity stops working below quantum physics. Like, it just doesn't apply. Time and space doesn't work that way. So, and that's where our conscious mind works. It's on that level. So that means to be really effective, we also need to give or allocate some space in our decision making for that subconscious and that feeling or that intuition. Call it whatever you want. Some call it spirituality or whatever. But here's a really important thing to make sure that you will not end up in a place in life where you've built this massive thing, but it was in the wrong direction. So I add this to everything I do. What does my intuition say I should do? Because even if the data, they're all pointing in this direction, but I have this weird, feeling in my stomach, or like that something's off, and it's not because of crappy food I had yesterday, then I probably will take another direction. Because if you are good at working with your intuition and you understand it and you develop a sense of like how to use it, then your intuition can be really strong. So I always check every decision I make with my intuition to make sure that it's aligned with who I am, my values, etc. And if you're not unsure of what your intuition is telling you, or like what your goals are, what your visions are, well, at least stay away from the things that you know you don't want. That's a huge start. Okay, enough of rant. The last part, check your intuition, make sure this is aligned with who you are and who you want to be, and where you're off to in the big picture. Does this make sense? I mean, come on, I even made it a little bit beautiful, right? I even added colors and stuff. I'm pretty excited with that. So, once I do that with one task, which, you can do it way faster than I did now, you just add another one to the side of it, and then you can do it again, and do it again. And then, when you realize, holy crap, maybe I'm just making stuff up. Here's the beauty. First of all, that's how we all do it. But then you could take this piece of paper, if you print it, and then you could give that to someone who has some insights into what you're doing. And then you tell them, hey, this is my assessment of my priorities right now. What are your inputs? Like, could you imagine that, going to your boss and saying, hey, this is how I see my workload and how things are, how I believe things to be. What do you think? And when they say, this makes a lot of sense, or they say, no, we should change it, that's a huge step in the right direction, because then you have this agreement that the way you're spending your time is the most effective and powerful way of doing it. Good stuff. Makes sense? Yes, I know I say it makes sense 100 times per day. For you guys who don't have the Eisenhower Matrix and don't have that training, comment below and I'll send you a link to get to the training. Because we did that yesterday and we're going to do it again, of course. Okay, so now that you guys have figured out, or after you've done this, you've figured out which tasks are the 5% that will give you 80% of the benefits. The question becomes, who or what should solve these tasks, right? Because it's not obvious to me that I need to do all these things. That's the beauty of this. This is the beauty of the Delegation Mastery Program and everything we do. We try to move everything to someone else so we can take the bigger picture and look at the strategy, the avoiding obstacle type of stuff. So the next slide will be basically to how to figure out who should do these things. Should it be me? Should it be someone else? And I have a complete set of filters to make sure that only the most essential things are done by you. That means you're spending your time on the 5% of the 5% of the task. And this should open up a bunch of time, and it should give you the confidence to go home at night knowing that you have done the most valuable task and that you could sleep good at night. You could spend time with your family and be fully present because you don't have to think about work anymore. And yeah, isn't that pretty amazing? I think so too. Okay, all of these things, if you find it useful, I will send you the link. I will, whatever you need, because these are all free stuff. It's just a nice way to kind of share my experiences. Do we have any questions? Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow on how to figure out who and what you do. I'm going to check the little comment sections. And I promise you guys, we're going to start playing some music in the beginning. Because I always listen to music to get started. I always do a little bit of a dance before I go live with you guys. But you never get to hear it. So I got my fancy playlist here. Yeah, let's see. I think we have some... Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. LinkedIn isn't showing me anything, but the Facebook peoples. Yeah, of course. Yeah, all of these things. You could find really fancy schmancy versions of it, which make it really complicated. There's really no reason. The more simple it is, all of these things, the more simple it is, the more effective, I think, because then you'll use it. All of these tools are basically something that I had in my pocket during deployments on this big piece of a paper, laminated, where I could go okay, if I do this, what's the best outcome? Okay, the best outcome is that this road will be cleared and we can move on, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, blow the shit up and I would lose a line. Oh, that's fine. That's, how likely is that? Not very, and the consequences very low. So I believe that it should be super simple and super fast. Otherwise, it's never going to be used. And that's the experience I have from the military. That we always push things towards the absolute most simple, because otherwise, it just doesn't work. I used to have super fancy Monday.com, whatever, super fancy complex automations and crap, and I'm no, I'm going back to the old school stuff. So I hope this was useful. Any other questions? So I gotta jump on another call here in a few minutes. I see now because I got a notification. Yeah. Okay, so you saw a little thing pop up here, like a little note. In the spreadsheet, once you get it, you'll see that there's some extra questions. And that's just to kind of help you understand the main question. So yeah, that's what it is. Super simple. Assess your task, move on to another one, and then balance them to each other. And that'll be it. Cool. Anything else? No? Okay, so I'll jump on to my next call. Thank you so much for coming on board, and I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao! Hopefully I can turn this off.